Boxing truth here. Errol Spence fanboys are talking mad shit, showing absolutely no respect to Kell Brook for the type of feat that he's about to do in a couple of weeks. Now, I've been reading some idiotic statements on my page regarding this situation between Kell Brook and Errol Spence, and it doesn't amaze me how dumb some boxing fans can be. Like fucking idiots. Seeing comments like, Kell Brook is running scared from Errol Spence. I'm not going to respect Kell Brook until he fights Errol Spence, even if he beats Triple G. Why should Kell Brook get any respect when he's avoiding Errol Spence? Because he's fighting Triple G, you dumb fuck. He's doing something that not a lot of top fighters are willing to do, and that's sign a contract to fight Triple G. He's doing something that those PBC Heyman boys don't have the stones to do. Not even Errol Spence. He's already been on record. It's an interview out there with one of those media outlets, ES News, Fight Hub, Behind the Gloves, one of them, and it's before the Bundu fight. And a reporter asked Spence, if Kell Brook beats Triple G, would you move up 2 divisions to fight him? And Errol Spence said no, flat out. He said he's not going to move up 2 divisions to fight Brook, that he's going to stay in the welterweight division. And that's fine, it doesn't have to move up 2 divisions. But the point is, Kell Brook is doing what none of those Heyman guys will do. They're not going to do, those Heyman boys are not even going to do anything half as daring of what Kell Brook's doing when he steps into the ring with Golovkin on September 10th. Now, the Spence fanboys need to calm the fuck down, gassing up Errol Spence, excited like a motherfucker because he knocked out a 41-year-old Leonard Bundu. Now, Spence gets style points for what he did. He became the first fighter to stop Bundu, but everyone expected him to beat him. It's just a matter of how he was going to beat him and whether he could make some sort of a statement. He was a 100-1 favorite. Those were the type of odds. It was a complete mismatch on NBC that somehow generated good viewership. But Heyman and Errol Spence need to thank the Olympics and the United States basketball team, as their gold medal game is the big reason why Errol Spence generated that type of viewership. You really think Errol Spence is the biggest draw in Al Heyman's stable? You actually think the Olympics and the gold medal game had nothing to do with those ratings? Now, there's been false reports on those ratings. They're saying that it's 6 million. Yeah, it peaked at 6 million viewers. But it averaged 4.8 million viewers. That's still the most viewership that PBC has done. But the truth is, PBC ratings have been down. Ever since their debut of last March, they've been declining steadily. And this is the first show that, ever since that first show in March of last year, that they even got in the neighborhood of 4 million viewers on average. Now, when it comes to the mandatory situation, it has yet to be enforced. Spence has been climbing the rankings, earning his mandatory status, which he recently got by knocking out Leonard Bundu. The freaking mandatory position has yet to be enforced. The IBF will enforce it on a date in late October. But let's see what goes down between this Kell Brook Triple G fight. Let's see what goes down on September 10th, and what's next for both fighters, whatever happens. But Errol Spence already been offered this fight in the past with Kell Brook. According to Eddie Hearn, he's been on record. He's offered this fight not only to Errol Spence, but also to Adrian Broner, Danny Garcia, among others. And he's been turned down by the Heyman people. Hasn't been able to get any action from the Heyman boys to have some of these guys come fight Kell Brook. Now, Errol Spence, I believe he's the best welterweight among Heyman's welterweights, among his Heyman stable. I think he beats Keith Thurman. I think he beats Adrian Broner, Danny Garcia. But yeah, he can beat those protected boxing chumps, but this is Kell Brook we're talking about. Kell Brook's no protected boxing chump. He's been an avoided welterweight champion. And that's the reason why he's taking on this challenge of fighting Golovkin, because he has been unable to get any big fights at welterweight. He's in the same shoes as Golovkin. He's been avoided. So now he's moving up 2 weight divisions in order to get this big fight that he's been yearning for. He's already fulfilled his mandatory obligations, and now he has the right to take a voluntary fight or a voluntary defense, and he opted for the biggest money fight out there that he could get. A fight that can get him into position, into the conversation if he wins, as among the candidates to fulfill the pound-for-pound throne. And y'all gonna say he's avoiding Errol Spence? An Errol Spence who only has Chris Algieri on his resume? That's the only former world champion he's beaten. And that was at 140 pounds. A much naturally smaller man who had lost 2 of his past 3 fights. Even though I felt Algieri defeated Khan ain't shit. He ain't no top fighter. And Algieri was still relatively unproven at welterweight. His success came at 140 pounds. So, Spence fanboys need to slow their roll when it comes to him challenging Kell Brook, because that's a whole nother challenge. A challenge I don't think he's ready. And the challenge, according to Eddie Hearn, Heyman's people turned down because they felt he wasn't ready. And I don't blame him. I would have did the same thing. I don't think Spence is ready for that type of challenge. He needs another learning fight. Another fight that can get him more seasoning, more of a test. Maybe fight more of a harder hitter before he's to take that type of challenge against Kell Brook. But it's just unbelievable, the lack of respect that Kell Brook is getting for some of Spence's fanboys. Like, damn, what do you got to do to get respect in this boxing game? You mean to tell me you're not going to be impressed? You're not going to give Kell Brook any respect if he beats Triple G until he fights Errol Spence? When Errol Spence is just a challenger, he got no hardware, he's got no belt, and he's still relatively unproven, especially at the top level. He has yet to do anything extraordinary in his career. And the thing is, Kell Brook acknowledged Errol Spence being his mandatory obligation for the IBF when the time comes. And he said that he's willing to take on that challenge. He's willing to fulfill it, but it depends what happens on September 10th. And what is the biggest fight out there with the most fan demand that the fans want to see. Now, I'm not saying Kell Brook, Errol Spence is not a great fight. But there are other fights out there that are much bigger, much more lucrative, and can generate a lot more fan interest and revenue for Kell Brook. Just read his recent interview on Sky Sports. Read between the lines. He said he would take the challenge, but it depends on what the biggest fight out there is. And if Kell Brook defeats Golovkin, it ain't going to be Errol Spence. He will stay at middleweight and maybe try to get a fight with Chris Eubank Jr. since he's been talking shit about him, saying he's going to get his ass whooped. That's a huge fight. Maybe Billy Joe Saunders. That's a huge fight. Maybe a Canelo fight, who expressed interest in fighting Kell Brook if he were to defeat Golovkin. Miguel Cotto is still looking for a December opponent. Kell Brook's got a lot of options if he pulls off this upset. And Errol Spence will be at the bottom on the ladder. And y'all motherfuckers gonna still say that he's ducking him when there's a lot more bigger, more lucrative fights out there. And much bigger challenges compared to an Errol Spence, who's done nothing but knock out Chris Algieri, the most recognizable name on his resume, and the only former world champion that he's beaten. Show some respect, y'all. Give the dude the props that he deserves, because none of those Heyman boys will do what Kell Brook is doing. They won't even do anything half as daring of what Kell Brook is doing. And most likely, even if Spence picks up that IBF strap, however it goes down, he will be avoided by the own welterweights in his own stable. as Garcia, Broner, and Thurman probably won't want that work. Spence will be avoided within his own stable. Kell Brook has paid his dues. He picked up a strap. He's made defenses. He's fulfilled mandatory obligations. Now it's time to see how good he is. And we're finally going to see that on September 10th. And as for Errol Spence, this is no knock on him. It's just his fanboys is just out of control, talking too much shit, and are just straight up delusional. But he ain't the biggest fight out there for Kell Brook. And he's not the most dangerous fight out there. And I don't want to hear about those misleading ratings either, because he's not the biggest draw and Al Haim is stable. This is Boxing Truth. I'm out.